attacks gets the beetles in place. It allows you to reset your lines, and it gets your fiends in position where they can do damage and keep them out of harm. Unfortunately for Boo, he's still kind of outnumbered at this point. He's lost a couple, or too many fiends, and now he's starting to chase. He's going to lose his Tinker here in a second as well. Not too big of a deal. Tinker's out of mana, can't put down another factory anyway. The only thing that it really does is, you know, you lose the resources, and you lose just basically another meleeer. Here we get, I don't think this is exactly the greatest idea for Tsuboshi. He's going to try and surround the Crypt Lord. I guess if you manage to pull it off, and he had it for a second, but he lost it. If you manage to pull it off, you do get rid of the level 4 Crypt Lord. Unfortunately, as you watch, he's going to lose a couple of units here. And he didn't exactly accomplish all that much because he didn't get the Crypt Lord. I think he's got a lot of hit points, and it's going to be really hard to take down, even without a Death Knight present. So, while it didn't turn out too bad for Tsuboshi, I think that, you know, trying to take down the Crypt Lord, especially one that's got very little mana, not exactly a priority in this situation. So, right now we've got, you know, Boo's doing the right thing. He's got a couple of towers up at his expansion. He's kind of hanging out there. He's waiting to get his units back. Statues are absolutely necessary in any undead strategy. However, with this it's even more necessary because you're going to need them to go up to destroyers later. In order to counter this orc ground army, you're going to need magic damage. Because the fiends do great, but with the raiders holding them in place, they're going to die pretty quickly. So what you do by introducing the destroyers is you make the orc, he's got to make a choice. Does he go for the destroyers and take care of the magic damage, which is going to be harder for the grunts to kill than the fiends? Or do you go for the piercing damage, which isn't doing extra damage, but you can actually kill them quite a bit quicker than the destroyers? So, I mean, it's an interesting choice, and to be honest with you, I think I'd go for the fiends just because you can take them down quicker. It actually takes a lot less work to take down the fiends than trying to ensnare a statue or a destroyer and take that down. Anyway, from Boo's point of view, he starts to put up a necropolis now, and this is a good idea because if you need to teleport back to the base, obviously, or you're going to need your expansion, so you're going to need to be able to teleport back to it. His expansion's not too far away from his main base, but the thing is, with the raiders, he would have lost his expansion well before he would have been able to get there if he had to teleport back to his main. By putting up a necropolis here, he'll be able to teleport back to his expansion and save that, and like I said, keeping up the resources is essential to be able to keep, you know, even with the orc and to actually have a chance to beat him. If you take a look at Tsuboshi's expansion now, he's actually lost a couple of PNs because of a single carrion beetle that's scouted out and found it. Basically what was happening is while Tsuboshi was attacking the expansion, that beetle kind of got there, took out a couple of PNs while Tsuboshi wasn't even paying attention. I don't quite agree with Boo's choice here. Putting up a second slaughterhouse, good idea. You're going to need him since he's starting to build more statues. He wants to pump out destroyers. If you take a look back at his main, he's getting another statue now. I think he's already got destroyer form. I'm not positive though. The thing here though is, in the slaughterhouse, putting it at the expansion, benefit of it is you get your statues closer to where you're going to be fighting. You can get the statues into the battle sooner. You don't have to worry too much about that. Unfortunately, as you can see here, it's going to be a prime target, especially since it's just building. And since it's not that far away, I really would have put the second slaughterhouse at the main base. It would have kept it better protected, less likely for it to be hit. Here he loses the benefit of getting a second slaughterhouse as he has to cancel it. So yeah, he has the destroyer form already. Devour or absorb mana from the statues. Obviously, that's, you know, brilliant idea. A lot of upper level players will do it. And what it does is, you know, that extra magic damage just completely tears apart the grunts. So here, Kodo Beast, I'm not quite sure what Tsuboshi was thinking. It gives him a boost to his damage, manages to devour one unit. Fortunately, it's not a very strong unit and is rather expensive. So here you can see that the panda's effectiveness has just been severely limited. He can really no longer do his drunken haze with the destroyers out. I mean, basically all that'll do is feed them more mana, give them, you know, the ability to do Orb of Annihilation again. As you can see, right now we've got, you know, the second bestiary is up. It's starting to put out the Wind Riders now. This is a natural progression for the orcs. You're going to try and, you know, keep the number of fiends down with your ground army, eventually getting up to wyverns. Wyverns plus area of effect from your heroes, in this case the Panda with his Breath of Fire, and the Chain Lightning from the Farseer are going to wreak havoc on either Fiends or even Gargoyles. So here Tsuboshi makes an interesting choice, and I guess you can go either way in this one. He decides to try and teleport in and save his expansion. Personally, looking at the armies and knowing what you have compared to what your enemy has since he's attacking expansion, I would not have made this choice. I don't think that Tsuboshi's army was prepared well enough for this, and I don't think he's going to benefit from this enough. He's already lost both of his burrows. Most likely he's going to lose the majority of his army, even if he does manage to fight this off. And I don't think that the little gold that he would get from this is really all that worth it. Unfortunately, Tsuboshi made this decision, so he's going to have to live with it and make the best of it. Manages to take down a couple of the Fiends. Unfortunately, the Destroyers are proving to be a problem. So, you know, the natural counter to that would be Bats. Here, the Bats are going to be very effective. If Boo had gotten a couple of armor upgrades, they'd be a little bit less effective, as the Destroyers, I think, would be able to take one extra Bat. Another thing with the Destroyers that's nice is the fact that you eliminate the area of effect. If it's a Tauren Chieftain, obviously you're in the area, you don't have to worry about it. But they are immune to magic, so you don't have to worry about dealing with Chain Lightning anymore, which is a problem that Gargoyles have. So, I mean, while Bats will counter Gargoyles incredibly well, you don't even really need them. And even if, you know, just you have a couple of, even if you have no Bats at all, you're going to be able to do quite a bit of damage to the Gargoyles to begin with anyway. The problem with Destroyers is that Wyverns counter them fairly well. And this is where the Fiends come in, because the Fiends can, you know, they can bring down the Bats, they can bring down the Wyverns. So you don't want to go just straight Destroyers, you're going to want to kind of keep it together and go with the Fiends and the Destroyers. And the nice part about this is, you know, you just have a couple of Fiends to bring down the air units, and you've already got the ground units to take care of any Bats or Wyverns that you're able to web down. So you really don't need that many Fiends. One of the things that I should have commented on earlier is, if you notice, the Tinker went with the Rockets as a second skill. Good choice, but as with the Cripplord, it's kind of dangerous because mana-wise, I mean, the factory I think costs like 110 mana or something like that, so I mean, you're going to be dishing out quite a bit of mana putting on those factories. The Rockets don't cost quite as much, but the nice part about the Rockets is not so much damage, but the second of stun. And like I said earlier, you know, just being able to freeze that Orc army for a second or two, like they can to you with Ensnare, it allows you to reposition your units. It gets you out of the way of, you know, whatever ground units that may be a problem. As you can see here, it's not so much a big deal anymore now the Orc switched over to air. The factory is obviously useless now. The Rockets are useful for stopping the heroes. You can maybe get a surround with the Beetles and a factory, basically stuff like that. As you can see in this match, Boo managed to pull this off and took down Tsuboshi. Probably not the greatest strategy in the world to use, however it is entertaining to watch, and it'll probably work against an opponent that's not ready for it. And if I'm right, I think Boo went on in the next game to do the same thing and actually lost. And one of the things that Tsuboshi mentioned was, at least in an interview, was that he really wasn't ready for a Tinker second. It's kind of understandable, not exactly a normal hero for Undead to use. I think, in a way, and there's two different ways to look at this. You can use the Tinker for the meat shield, it keeps the grunts away, and the normal damage of the Clockwork Goblins works really well against the Raiders. Unfortunately, that's really hard to micromanage, so it's kind of going to basically be luck if they go after the Raiders as opposed to the grunts. I think a good, or maybe even like a better choice, might have been to go with the Fire Lord. Fire Lord gives you, while they're not technically meat shields because they're ranged, you could put the lava spawns in there, and even though they don't, you know, go in front of the Fiend stacked as a meat shield, because of the fact that they will split and they'll start forming new ones, it's going to become a priority for the Orc to take them down, because they are going to do significant damage to the grunts. So basically what you do is now you've got a spawn, or a summon, that is actually acting as a ranged unit, does quite a bit of damage, but it's a high priority target because of the fact that you don't want more and more to keep showing up just from the single one. especially since it doesn't cost the Fire Lord any mana to make the second or third ones that are spawning from the first one. So it's kind of a choice for the Orc player to make. Do you keep going after the Fiends and just trust the lava spawns not to make that big of a difference, or do you go after the lava spawn, take that down, and then go after the Fiends? The thing with the factory is it has low hit points. It's relatively easy to take down, and you don't have to go after the Clockwork Goblins. All you have to do, take down the Fiend or the factory, and then that's done with. Nice part about the factory, though, you don't have to micromanage it at all. Firelord versus Tinker. I think Firelord, especially in the way of the Orcs progressing to air, probably would have helped a lot better. It gives you those ranged summons, like I said, so that's extra attack against the air. It also gives you the ability to, if I'm right, you can silence your the enemy heroes, and do quite a bit of damage as well. And I think that is a very effective strategy to go along with the Crypt Lord. As you can see, the Crypt Lord kind of loses his effectiveness with the strategy as the game goes on. So he's rather strong in the beginning, becomes weaker later on, simply because of the fact that he's a really ground-based hero. However, he does decent damage. He has quite a bit of hit points. So you give him an orb, and he did rather well against the air units, especially if you've got a couple of Fiends to bring him down to the ground. You can use it, let the beetles take care of him from there. So I hope that my input on this helped you, and whether or not you use the strategy, whether it's for fun or if you can actually get it to work. I hope you enjoyed this audio commentary, and hopefully I'll be bringing you some more